Hi, and welcome to More Human, More Resources, the HR podcast for entrepreneurs. I'm Vicki Brown, your host and CEO of Vidamaneo Enterprises. As a serial entrepreneur, I understand that having the right expert help has been critical to my success. That's why I'm dedicated to telling you, in plain language, what's going on in the world of HR that might impact your business and what you need to do about it, with real actionable tips to help you master that list of must-dos and grow your leadership muscle. First things first, the information contained in this podcast is provided for general purposes only and is not to be considered legal advice. Your decision to adopt or not adopt any practice or procedure mentioned in this podcast is solely yours, and we bear no responsibility for the outcome. We urge you to always consult legal counsel and other appropriate licensed professionals. And with that, let's get into the show. You're listening to Season 2, Episode 9. Hi, everybody. This podcast episode is going to be a bit of a departure because today we're talking about entrepreneurial productivity. Now, as the CEO, how can you arrange your day so it's the most effective for you, your team, and the business? As a business owner, you're your own boss and you set your own schedule. I know at my company, most of the team works 9 to 6, and we have some people who come in 10 to 7. As for me, well, my start time working is usually around 6 or 7 a.m. And the end time, well, the end time is usually 10 or 11 p.m. I know, don't panic. There are breaks in there. And the reality is, my body clock is geared to the night. I do my best creative work at night, and working in the quiet, uninterrupted time of the evening is super appealing to me. What can I say? I'm a night owl. But I digress. Back to the daily schedule. Now, although I start at 6 or 7 each day, that's me working in my home office before I go into the corporate office. And depending on what rabbit hole my email or voicemail takes me down while I'm working, I might get in the office at 10 or even noon or 1 on particularly complex days. I haven't really given it much thought in the past, mostly because to me I'm working anywhere from 8 to 10 hours each day. But a couple of weeks ago, something funny happened. For various reasons, I had to get to the office at 9 a.m. And I couldn't believe how much just sheer day there was in my day. When I looked up from my work, it wasn't 3 or 4 in the afternoon. It was 10:30 in the morning. There was so much day left. It felt like I had endless hours left to get things done. Now, why is it that starting work at home at 6 a.m. and getting into the office at 11 is so different from getting into the office at 8:30? Well, for one thing, I was able to use that early office time to get myself organized before the phones start ringing and team members start popping in and asking questions. You see, I figured out that even if I had been working at home for 3 hours before I got to the office, once I did get in, there was always an onslaught, messages, and people waiting. And so I would start right in answering questions, problem solving, approving projects. I didn't really have time in that physical space to take a moment and get acclimated to the day. And if I'm being honest, before, the likelihood that my routine of checking email and voicemail at home would plunge me into a rabbit hole, well, that was pretty high. So more often than not, my day in the office wouldn't start until 11. And by the time I addressed the issues that came up during my commute from home to work, it would be noon or later. So then half the day would be gone before I could begin to tackle the big 3 tasks I had for myself for the day. And sure, I worked later, both at the office and at home, but I'm not sure that time was as effective from either a creative or productivity standpoint. So I decided to dedicate myself to a big shift. Now, oddly, I'm still getting up at the same time, around 6 a.m. But instead of making coffee, diving right into email, and setting my tasks for the day, I just do something personal for 30 minutes. After coffee, of course. Maybe reading, listening to a podcast, or writing. Then I get ready for the day and commit to waiting until I get into the office to look at email. I found that's the secret. I have to avoid email until I'm actually ready to dive into the day. So, no more home viewing. Then, once I get to work, I can go for it. And it's early enough that things aren't in full swing as much as they would be later in the morning. And what about the other end of the day? What about the night owl creativity? Well, that's still happening. It's just a slightly earlier night owl. Honestly, I used to leave the office at 8 or 9, but now when I come in early, I leave at 6 or 6:30. So I have 2 or 3 more hours in my home office than I used to, and I can still get a solid 7 hours of sleep. You know, when I think about it, the total daily hours didn't actually change. It's how I arrange them that's different. So, if you find yourself constantly saying, I need more hours in the day, it may not be so much that you need more hours. You may just need to shift how you're using the hours you do have. Try becoming an early riser. It might not be as difficult as you think. Besides, if it's good for Richard Branson, Michelle Obama, Tim Cook, and Bob Iger, it probably has some real benefits for us night owls. If you found this information helpful, please leave a review and tell a friend. Thanks for spending the time. Until next week, same time, same place.